Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this another series of Caribbean Chemicals Live. Today promises to be a very exciting session as we continue to educate our farmers on the various strategies and methods of, growing your yields. Today, we just want to salute our heroes and heroines, those who are holding down the front line in terms of safety and protection of our country, our nurses and doctors, and of course, we salute our farmers for continued being our heroes. And of course, you too can be your own hero. Of course, you ensure that you eat right, exercise, and of course, wear your mask and get lots of sunshine. Today, we want to let you all know that we have a very specially invited guest who will be participating on our platform. Of course, for those who have their passports, strap into your seats because we are going international. What do I mean by that? We have a guest coming in all the way from Trinidad and Tobago. Of course, our sister company, Caribbean Chemicals, is, of course, on board with us. And so we want to salute Samuel Sukan for joining us today as we engage in this very, in this conversation of hydroponics. We want to dissect it. We want to see how well we can get the information across to you readily and available. And at the same time, we want to ensure that all our participants can walk away having felt that they would have learned. So can I invite Samuel at this time to just open his mic and share with us, introduce himself, and to give us a rundown of what you do in Trinidad, so our viewers can, of course, have a perspective of what's going on that side of the world. Samuel? Hello, can you hear me? Not sure if he's hearing me so well, but are you hearing me, Samuel?
Yeah, Dean?
Yes, sure. Go ahead.
All right, great. Let me just plug back in this headphone one more time and try it again.
Okay, sure. So while he does that, of course, we're working with the technology here, farmers. So, do remember to like, comment, and to subscribe to our page. It's now Carib Chem, and it's on all major platforms, whether it be on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and of course, we'll be launching other sites to come. So, look out for that. And of course, we are recording. So you will always have this information to go back to, to ensure that you can, of course, recall some of the activities. Samuel, are you ready now? Yes? All right. So while he prepares to get in, we just break down.
You hear me now?
Yes, sure. You can go ahead now, Samuel. Certainly.
Okay, great. Sorry.
Those who are in the chat, if you can just give me a thumbs up if you're hearing Samuel, or just say yes, so we can know. But go ahead, Samuel. Introduce yourself first, please.
All right. So first of all, I'd like to apologize for the technical difficulties. I had a pair of earphones on and they were apparently not working as well as I thought.
Okay.
Hi, everyone. Good day. My name is Samuel Sukan. That's SAMUEL SOOKHAN. I am the greenhouse, hydroponics, and irrigation specialist at Caribbean Chemicals Trinidad. I came into the field about a year and a half ago. I'm originally a mechanical engineer technician by trade and profession. I left the oil and gas industry roughly a year and a half ago and came into agriculture. I have about 10 years experience with hydroponics. I grew hydroponics on my own for about 8.5 of those years, and I supplied to the local markets. Within those years, as well as working in the industry, the oil and gas industry, I did a lot of private projects for friends and people who got into contact with me, from all the way from design to building, even greenhouse designs and greenhouse, well, not really into the construction, but I did greenhouse planning, greenhouse designs and stuff like that. So because of those criteria, I guess Caribbean Chemicals saw some value in hiring me. So I am here in Caribbean Chemicals Trinidad. What I do, I am in charge of developing the hydroponic section. we are now in our branch here, we are now seeking to really get deeper into the hydroponics aspect of farming. So I am here working alongside the other agronomists, working alongside my manager, as well as the Mr. Perez, to get greenhouse and hydroponics equipment into the country. Also, a big part of my job is meeting farmers, having conversations, helping where I can help with problems, and also pushing hydroponics and that particular way of farming. So my job out here in the country, and it's me alone in my department, is a bit tasking, but I enjoy doing it. My job really and truly is to try to get our farmers and people educated about hydroponics, and get excited about the whole method of growing. Yeah. So I'll leave that for now, because I know Dean has a nice presentation to give you all. Anybody have any questions or anything that you would like to ask me after, you can feel free to. But for now, that's just a quick introduction to who I am and what I do. And I'll hand over to Dean.
Okay, thank you, Samuel, and thank you guys for joining us today. Of course, the conversation will be centered around, of course, what is hydroponics, some of the advantages therein, and the various types, and of course, what role does carbon chemicals play in, of course, helping farmers along the way to be more productive in this sector. So let's get into it. So we talk about hydroponics, of course, being increasingly popular, but more so the efficiency of it is what really the main reason why persons get into it. And of course, the need for this kind of technological improvement in agriculture cannot be overstated. Of course, based on the fact that you can reduce your footprint in terms of land mass, of course, reduce your use for water, and of course, fertilizers. That again, of course, are some of the reasons why you find persons moving into it. Of course, carbon chemicals would have been sold for, in terms of, foresight, hence Samuel and myself and other members of the teams, having this background into it, so we can guide those who are coming into the industry, and of course, be individuals who can, lead the front line. So the cultivation of the crops without soil pretty much is what hydroponics is. So it's a soilless cultivation practice, but at the same time, the range of crops that can be grown in an hydroponic setup is what is also of paramount importance. You find that various herbs, flowers, and vegetables, and of course, can be done in it. We've seen where we have lettuce and pak choy. Those are some common crops, but you talk about cauliflower, broccoli, tomatoes, your sweet peppers. Those, of course, can also be grown in an hydroponic setup. Samuel, what other crops you would have seen from your experience there in and across Trinidad and across the rest of the Caribbean states that you would have seen growing in an hydroponic system?
Well, I've seen stuff from the smallest of stuff, for example, shadow benny, all the way to where I've actually seen a farmer growing papaya in a Dutch bucket setting, which was really shocking to me. So there was an actual tall, massive papaya tree bearing in a hydroponic bucket. Aside from that, we have people planting kale, anything along the cucurbit line of products. I would say anything that you can plant in, anything that's going to grow in a huge tree, you can plant it in hydroponics. Anything that is not going to go into a huge tree like a mango tree or something like that, you can plant it in hydroponics.
Yes, indeed. And of course, the fact that hydroponic fosters this kind of rapid growth and development, you're also looking at the back end, which is, of course, the yield and the quality of crops. Later on in the session, farmers, you'll hear more about how the turnover in terms of the timeline. But when you look at some of the advantages and the disadvantages of using this methodology, this method of growing crops, you're talking about the cost to set up, and that's why the persons normally shy away because of the cost that is associated with it. Let me just see if I can stop sharing you guys for a moment and just so I can get this thing off my screen. I'm not sure if it will. It's blocking some of the text, but one of the advantages, well, the disadvantage, of course, in terms of the cost to set up, if you're not in an area where you have power outages very frequently, then of course that can also be an issue, because once electricity goes, depending on the type of system that you set up, then your system can literally go down. That of course will cause wilting in your plants, and then it can result in some loss. One of the other. Yes, Georgia.
Just a minute. Just exit the presentation and come back in.
Okay, so stop sharing or just exit altogether?
Stop sharing. No, stop sharing the screen and then share back the screen.
All right, let me see if that helps. All right, guys, so, from time to time, we do have various technical difficulties, so we just try to get it correctly. All right, so there you go. Thank you, Georgia. Always helpful. So the cost therein, Samuel, have I missed out any of the disadvantages in terms of a hydroponic system? I mean, I know the know-how is also another factor that can come into play here, but are there any other, things that we say, oh, I don't want to do this thing. It's too much.
I think you basically covered a lot of the majority of them there. As a matter of fact, I think that's a comprehensive list. So
okay.
Yeah, you're good.
Yeah, man. So the costing, if you're plugging into, so to overcome like your power outages, of course, if you can go renewables, again, that will of course add to your startup cost, but at the same time, you won't have that cost to face in the long term. The system will eventually, of course, pays for both the setup and of course, whatever maintenance aspects of it that you want to also bring to bear. Now, of course, the advantages now in terms of water usage and nutrient usage. Once you irrigate in soil, farmers, that water goes down into your soil and it can be leached. So that's the loss of that water. In a hydroponic system, depending on the method that you've chosen, you can get back that solution and recirculate it. So that's one way. Of course, you have methods where you have like a drip to waste, that the water goes into just runs away and you don't worry to use it over. But again, there's no weed to consider or to look into. Our weeding is pretty much non-existent. So you save on labor, you save on time. Every part of your effort goes into your production. You get more crops per unit of land. Why is it so? Because you can go vertical. You can move, not just, so if you're using, say you're growing romaine lettuce and you're only using 5 or 4 rows, when you look at the number of plants you can put, you're pretty much limited there. Now, Samuel, the increased cropping cycles and the fewer pests and easier to harvest and replant, explain these for our audience and for the persons who are listening. How are these advantages, if any?
Okay, so let's start with the increase in cropping cycles. And I'll give you all from experience with my farmers, right? Normally, if you plant, now, if I'm speaking too fast, please let me know, okay? If you plant something like lettuce in the ground, you will probably look to reap that within 5 to 6 months. Weeks. But you see, when you plant stuff in a hydroponic system, the plant does not have to expend energy growing excessive amount of roots and fighting its way through the soil to find the fertilizer and look for that fertilizer. In a hydroponic system, the plant gets it readily. So the plant it saves on that energy, and it puts that energy into growing. So now instead of you getting a lettuce in 6 weeks, you might get your lettuce in 5 weeks, 4.5 weeks, right? And because of the ability to reap those crops sooner, you have now an increase in your cycle. You could do another cycle. So let's say 4 cycles would have taken you 2 months. Now you could put in another cycle in there, and let's say we could do 5 cycles for 2 months in 2 months time, right? So that's where the increase in the cropping cycles come in, because the plants can readily make the fruit without having to put stress, without having to divert energy into root.
Okay, excellent.
But with the pests, yes, you will get stuff like, for example, if you have peppers or tomatoes, you might end up getting white flies, you might get mites, you might get trips, whatever. But you get away from stuff in the ground. For example, you are planting in the ground, you plant tomatoes in the ground, or you plant sweet peppers in the ground. And if you have then you have a problem on your root zone, and your plant wilts away. And if that's in the soil, you have to plant something differently, or you have to plant something that's resistant. In hydroponics, you don't have that. You get away totally from that pest in the soil, those fungus, those bacteria in the soil. You get away from that.
No nematodes either.
Correct, no nematodes. However, Dean, I would say this. What I have experienced just last week, I went to a farmer, and he actually had a little bit of nematodes or some kind of worms, some stem borers in his plants. And he was doing a drip away system, but that could have come with the water, or that could have come in the soil medium that he purchased now, the cocoa peat.
Okay.
So it's not something that you have to look out for. That was just a very rare occasion that he got that, because we were all a bit taken aback with that, right? So you have fewer pest problems when it comes to the root zone of your plant. Yes, you're going to get attacks on your leaves, as with everything else, unless you're going in a completely enclosed, 100% controlled environment, which most likely most of you will not be doing. So that with the fewer pest problem. It's easier to harvest because if you grow hydroponics in let's say a NFT system, most of the time it's about waist height. So now it's pretty simple. You don't have that back bending. You don't have to crouch or whatever. Everything is most of the time when you do hydroponics, it's off the ground. It's easier for you to reach. On top of that, you don't have to deal with soil and pulling out stuff from the soil. Everything is there, and it's not compact. The roots are right there. You just take it out, and you have the long trail of roots following you. You just turn it, twist off the roots. And because of that ease of growing, we have seen a lot of younger people shifting into agriculture just because of hydroponics. Because I don't know how it is up the islands, but in Trinidad, there was a mentality that farming is for uneducated old people, because farming is groundwork, that's real hard work. And I have my education to do that. But because of hydroponics now, and it's easier, you don't have to go into the ground, you don't have to plow, you don't have to take all that hot sun, whatever. A lot of educated people leaving universities with degrees and whatever, they're coming into hydroponics because it is easy. It is an easier way of growing. It's a more efficient way of growing. And that whole stigma for agriculture is quickly dying away because of hydroponics. Back to you, Dane.
Yes, man. And one of the things, so thanks, Samuel, one of the things we could also add to this advantage column is the fact that you could do this on marginal lands. So if you have a plot of land that is probably on a slight slope or a hillside, and you are unable to use in a sense that it doesn't have sufficient soil or such like. So, you know, therein you could, of course, use that. Davian has his hand raised. Davian, you want to open your mic and just share where you're from and then ask your question, please.
Yeah, man. Afternoon, Davian Newman, Jamaica New Varieties. Yeah, man. Manchester, South Manchester. Question in terms of the hydroponics, me here on the list out a few types of crop. My question is this: is there a limit to the type of crop can be planted in it?
Well, the technology is so much, Davian, that it's wherever your mind can stretch to. As Samuel would have mentioned earlier, he saw papaya growing in one setup, perhaps experimental or something of the sort, but the crop range and limitations are predominantly wherever your mind can take you. So I've seen where other persons would have done research, I mean extensive research, and they did crops like turmeric, ginger, other root crops in an hydroponic system. So it's a function of how adaptable that particular crop is and how much you're probably intending on spending or the extent to which you plan on going in terms of your crop production. So for the most part, the hydroponic system comprises of several things. And one of the major things, well, the major inputs are these that are listed here. So if you're thinking hydroponics, you won't necessarily have to go inside of a greenhouse. It can be done in an open space as well as it can be covered for ease of and flexibility. So you're talking about whether you're doing a screened area or you're doing a complete plastic or polytunnel. So David, I hope that response would have provided some amount of answer there for you. So you need a particular growing media. It says here, Samuel, that you're talking about inert, something to support and to. What are some of the growing media that you've commonly seen? I've seen perlite, I've seen gravel. What else are some of the common growing media that are used in hydroponics?
Well, we have perlite, there are gravel. There's a growing media called vermiculite, which is pretty similar to perlite, but is of a different composition. A famous one in this country right now is cocoa peat, which is coconut husk being milled down to like dust and fibers.
Well, we call it coir here. So,
cocoa coir, right?
Yeah, same, pretty much the same thing.
Yeah, and in an NFT system, our local growers tend to use ProMix, the growing mix. So those are some, and then there is also the expanded clay pebbles hydroton, which is another big growing media. So those are some of the growing medias that I've come across. Also, I've seen people growing in sand, a mixture of sand and cocoa coir. So those are some of the media that I've come across so far. And just on one thing, just to Dave, I have a customer right now in southern Trinidad. He is growing 2,000 bags of ginger. Each bag is a 12-gallon bag full of cocoa coir, and it has about 5 roots of ginger, 5 ginger plants in each bag, and it's a drip to waste system. And he has about 2,000, and he's currently expanding, going with more.
Yes. So that's excellent there. Our TH growing mix farmers that comes in 2 grades can of course suffice. Let me just check the chat here and see what is there a hard copy available? Yes, certainly. We'll post on Caribbean Chemicals. We have it, of course, in there. So let me just check here and see what is happening here. Okay, so we have certainly various growing medium here that we can, of course, utilize if you so require. you can, of course, I see there's another hand raised. Good afternoon. You can go ahead and open your mic and say where you're from and your name, please.
Hi, hello. I'm Caroline Beckford. You can call me a backyard gardener. Experimenting. But I have a question. On your earlier slide, you mentioned the advantage of fewer pests, but and the whole issue that Samuel mentioned too, of the person with the worms in the system, and you also mentioned the nematodes. But I think one of the issues that I've seen just talking to people who have been doing hydroponics, the planting material or the seedlings, I realize that people are using the soil-based seedlings and introducing it into their systems, mostly the NFT systems I've seen.
Yeah, that's a no-no right here.
Right. So the question though is, where do you get clean seedlings that use the media that you mentioned earlier? Well, some of the media. Because I think it's, based on what I'm seeing, it's kind of pervasive, the use of the soil, the soil-based seedlings into the system. And based on my reading, it's kind of, as you say, it's a no-no. Where do we get the seedlings that are in the type of media?
All right. Connected to Caribbean Chemicals are a lot of nursery operators. We would have featured a few of them in previous sessions. But what you could do, you could just, we have a WhatsApp line. I'll just ask you to leave your information, Georgia, if you can. And so we can share with you some of the nursery operators, where they are and perhaps what you need. If you so require the need to grow your own seedling, as I was indicating earlier, we have our TH growing mix that is pretty much soilless media that can be utilized. It comes in there's a coarse textured type, and we do have a fine grain quality, so you can of course choose to utilize either of those. But we have various nursery operators and that can provide assistance where that is concerned. So we will communicate further on in terms of how you can access those, and for the benefit of those who are on the platform, they are in various parishes. So I'll try to link you with that person. So in terms of ease of transportation and so on, there's not much there to be done. All right. So thank you for your question. So of course, another component of your hydroponic system is your pump. This, of course, is what you're going to be using to lift and transport your nutrient solution, your water to your crops. Ideally, we normally suggest and recommend that if you don't have to do a continuous flow, meaning that you pump to a point, as in to a higher point, and then allow the water to move under gravity through your system, that of course reduces your need to be pumping continuously. So you could perhaps put a barrel lower or beneath your soil, and then one that will catch the drain that is coming from your system, and then that pump will return it now to a point which is at least higher than the system. So you have that, so you have less need to pump. So perhaps like a pump with a float switch, that could assist right there. The water has to also be oxygenated, and that nutrient solution, of course, you need the roots to be breathing. You're going to have to size this based on your system that you're putting in, and based on the volume of water that you're going to be needing. We're going to cover this aspect later on down in the program. Net pots as well and support, and of course you're going to be required to have your EC and your pH meters, just to ensure that you can test your solution and top up as the need goes by. All right, so I hope that, all right, so now we would have mentioned some of the different types of hydroponic system. So your choice is dependent upon several factors, of course, being your location, the cost that you're going to be putting in to establish or to set up your system. The type of crop too helps as a determination, because if you're growing leafy vegetables, then your NFT or your ebb and flow systems can work, as well as if you're growing crops like your peppers and tomato that needs a little bit more anchorage because you want them to grow vertical, then your beta buckets or your growth channels are going to be more critical here. So Samuel, I'm going to call on you again. What's the difference, if any, between a nutrient film technique and your deep flow technique?
All right. So with your nutrient film technique, which is abbreviated NFT, it's just as the name suggests. It's a film of water running down the channel. And that film of water is just like a little trickle of water that goes down the entire length of the channel and touches the roots and transmits the fertilizer and the oxygen to the roots through that little film of water, right? A system like this is a continuous cycle system that will run continuously for between 12 to 16 hours a day, depending on how you will run in your system. So that's what it is. NFT nutrient film technique, right? When you film, there's a film, there's a thin trickle of water going down. As compared to a DFT, where in a DFT, the hardware is different as compared to an NFT. In an NFT, you use a smaller pipe, you may end up using a rectangular pipe. As with a DFT now, a lot of people tend to use a 4-inch or a 6-inch PVC pipe. And in that system, you have your outlet staggered just about above halfway point, the halfway point on the outlet of the pipe. So you always have a reservoir of water in the pipe. So in a DFT system, which is deep flow technique, you have your water coming in, but you can have it trickling just like the NFT, a small trickle. But what happens is that to the bottom of the pipe, let's say the bottom half of the pipe, the water collects there, and then when it reaches a certain level, it starts to overflow out of the pipe. So that's the main difference between the DFT and the NFT. The NFT does not keep a reservoir of water. Everything just runs straight from the top to the end and runs back out. But the DFT stores at least half of the pipe diameter in water. A system like that, you can run it continuously, you can run it intermittently, or you can run it on a 1-day period where you turn it on once for the day just to refresh the water inside of there. So that's the basic difference between DFT and NFT.
Okay. And of course, farmers, the DFT would have been the system that is to the right of the screen. That is to the top right here, where the reservoir, there's a reservoir of water, as he had explained, that remains in the pipe. So there's no need for a continuous flow. That's right, Samuel. Am I correct to say that?
Yes, you are correct.
Indeed. So you can pump for a point, and then of course with time you can of course learn how often you need to replenish that reservoir in terms of flushing the pipes again, so you add back fresh nutrient solution to it. Of course, this system, if you have an area where you don't have sustained electricity, or you don't have a system where you have sustained electricity, then this of course can and will work for you, versus NFT system, which is on the left-hand side, that requires you to have nutrients trickling through the system in a continuous basis. Now, the other systems that we would have mentioned just now are your floating raft, which is another method that you're seeing here, which of course, as the name suggests, you're using a styrofoam board. It's a rectangular tank, anywhere from about 4 to 6 inches deep, with your nutrient solution present in it. So you'll mix a nutrient solution, put it in, and then rest these rafts on top of it. The root systems are suspended in it, and the plants will maintain their growing cycle in that nutrient solution. In some instances, you have topping up that is required, or you can ensure that there is no airspace between, or there's no space between the raft themselves and the lids of the tank, so that you don't have algae growing up inside of it. This technique that you're seeing right here to this screen is a system that was developed by a farmer using 55-gallon barrels. And of course, you can see where innovation, as I was mentioning to you, and cost does play a critical factor. If you can't necessarily buy some of the material, you can, of course, look at this. This is a plain and simple. So the rafts are allowed to float, and the lettuce grows pretty much inside of these half barrels. So this is one drum cut in half here, and it continues. So if you have access to these, I mean, there's always a strategy that can be employed. So again, as I was saying to you, the system that you would have chosen, all of these you would bring to bear. What's my budget? Can I afford to buy PVC pipes versus, perhaps line and a small area and then put the rafts in? Because this raft, this system, of course, could have been dug into the earth. So you would even have to go and buy a barrel. You could use blocks and make a trough and line that trough with perhaps old plastic, and then add your rafts to it. So there are various methods. Your location, am I on a flat area, sloping land, the crops that you intend on growing, of course. And again, in terms of scaling, do I need to be doing or output? What's my output in terms of a weekly or fortnightly or monthly harvest? And again, to the availability of water, because you still need to stock up back on your tanks and to do what is required of you. So these are some examples of some of your basic systems. Now, Samuel, I don't know if you've seen the beta buckets built from 5-gallon buckets, or even the smaller 1 and 2, 3 liter bucket, like a 1-gallon bucket. But farmers, you can innovate. This is the original type of bucket. Based on your budget, you can, of course, either do a DIY, and of course, we here at Caribbean Chemicals, as Samuel would have mentioned, we are looking into various systems. So shortly, of course, you'll see some of these very much and pretty much available at your disposal that you can acquire. Let me just check the chat here. I'm seeing perhaps some questions. What are the crops suited for each system? Or it doesn't matter. As we were saying earlier, depending on the system, if you notice for your leafy vegetables, these are smaller crops. You want to be planting more. So like for your NFT system, you're talking about you can do strawberries, you can do lettuce, you can do kale, parsley, celery. Those crops that are smaller in size, arugula, can be planted in systems like these. In your beta buckets or your Dutch bucket systems, you normally do, like, let me just say 3 crops, or crops that will grow up vertically. So you can, of course, harvest like your tomatoes or your sweet peppers from these systems. So these are some of the ways you can go about doing it. Those are some of the crops that you can, of course, plant in it. Now, again, in keeping with, I want to grow some lettuce in a system, we do have the inputs to provide for our farmers. And so we would have considered our different types of lettuce seeds. These, of course, can be grown in soil as well as in your hydroponic system. On the left-hand side, you have our matte green. And of course, our Olga red. We also have another, I believe it's Red Rapid. Very nice, lush, easy to grow plants. Maturity within 35 to 40 days. So you're getting nice, pretty beautiful heads within that time. And of course, you see the colors. And the market, of course, will readily accept, and you can use these accordingly, even if you're doing it for your home purposes. Again, too, we do of sweet pepper varieties that can be used in the system. These are our red and yellow king, and if you notice how they are prolific in nature, these were grown on a farm here in Mandeville. You can always tell when you see the red dirt, not true? Yes, man. So the farmer would have, of course, benefited from the results of these plants. They are high yielding and they grow up to 8 feet tall if you allow them, and they are always producing peppers. So, you know, things to consider. Now, for your hydroponic setup, your fertilizer mix, of course, is going to be another critical part of your system. And of course, we supply the hydroponic inputs again that you will be needing. In this situation, we're talking about your aerosol, NPK, plus magnesium and trace elements. We also have calcium nitrate as well as magnesium sulfate. So these can be utilized, and we've seen where farmers have benefited successfully from the use and of these programs. And of course, Samuel, we do have programs like this that you can utilize. If you have a copy of our 2021 calendar, I believe it's June. I wonder if anybody can find yours. Let's see who can post in the chat and find June and tell me if I'm correct. I believe it's June that you will see a success story. George, I feel like I want to give a gift. Is that possible at this time? If a farmer who is on the chat and in possession of one of our calendars, can you find the page that has a success story? I shouldn't say the month. Okay, I'll give the month out already. Can you find that page and then post in the chat and tell me if you found that page and who is on that page and what's displayed very much right there. So that's your first challenge for the afternoon. Now, let's continue in terms of the hydroponics mix. So now, Samuel, the fertilizers here that we are carrying, this program in particular that we've been running and utilizing and seeing the results from it, how does a farmer go about putting it together to effectively run or apply in their hydroponic system?
All right. Well, first of all, as you said, we have the algasol, the NPK. We have calcium nitrate, which is CaNO3, which will be calcium nitrate, and MgSO4, which is the magnesium sulfate, right? Just a quick note, magnesium sulfate is Epsom salt, right? So if you run out of magnesium sulfate by a agro shop, you can go to the drugstore and get some Epsom salt in the interim, right? So what we do is basically you dilute according to your fertilizer. You dilute them by weight. So let's say, for example, you want to use 50 grams. You get your 50 grams of each of your fertilizer, and you dilute them, right? Dane, is that what you're asking me, right?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, man. Go ahead.
Right, great. So you dilute them. Now, I've come across there's a aspiring agro shop in Trinidad, and what he was doing, he was mixing all the salt together. Those three salts, number 1, 2, and 3, agasol, calcium nitrate, magnesium sulfate. He was mixing it all together and selling it as a hydroponic, easy to use hydroponic solution. Now, the guy had good intentions. I will give him that. You know, he was trying to make life easy for everyone. However, that is less than ideal. That is an absolute no. When it comes to your mixing of your fertilizers, and I believe there's another slide that Dane had here, right? You have to mix your fertilizers separately, and you add them into the tanks separately as well, right? We don't encourage you mixing of fertilizers, and the slides coming will explain why. But we don't encourage the mixing of fertilizers before dilution and even after concentrated dilution. We don't encourage the mixing of concentrated fertilizers. The only place they should be mixed is inside of your bulk tank, right? So That's basically it. Your hydroponics mix, these 3 main fertilizers, you dilute them separately and you add them into your tank and you test.
But what if any, Samuel, would be the disadvantage of combining them together? Why are you saying don't do it?
Okay, so here's the thing. We are dealing with, so for those of you who might not be a little bit onto the chemistry side of things, we are dealing with chemistry here. It's not just fertilizers. Everything has a chemical process. So the fertilizers, they undergo a chemical process when they're diluted, right? When they're dry salts, you can mix them together because they are not, let's just use the word activated, right? They have not been activated by the water. But when you mix them, the molecules spread out a little bit more. Now, and when the molecules spread out, the chemicals are better able to intermingle with each other, right? So now you have potassium, which is in your NPK, a high potassium, and then you have calcium, which is in your calcium nitrate. And potassium and calcium do not mingle well with each other, right? They don't mingle well. They tend to cling to each other. So it's like two rude boys bounce up in a fit, and they start a fight. They hold on to each other and they start a fight, right? So that's what calcium. Just think about it like that. Calcium nitrate, calcium and potassium, they would cling to each other, right? Now, when they cling to each other, the 2 things happen. You have precipitation happening, which is basically solids forming. So you're diluting your chemicals, you mix it together, and when you mix these 2 together, they solidify again, solidify into grains, right? So one, they solidify into grains. Those solids can interfere with your filtration, with clogging your lines, a whole host of problems. Then the other thing is, when the calcium and the potassium combine, they rob your stock solution out of calcium and potassium, essentially. So now your plants get in solution, but they're not getting the amount of calcium and the amount of potassium they should be getting, and they suffer simply because the calcium and the potassium cling to each other and fall to the magnesium. On the other hand, is very safe. You can mix magnesium with the agasol, you can mix the magnesium with the calcium nitrate. There's not an issue, but you cannot mix the agasol with any NPK. As a matter of fact, you cannot mix any NPK with anything calcium based, right? They will cling to each other and rob your solution of valuable nutrients, and they will also cling to the side of the wall, fall to the bottom, circulate in your system, and clog up your lines, and cause you a whole host of problems. Over to you, Dane.
Okay then. Now I see the chat line here blowing up. Hello, good afternoon. Just joined, missed out. A teen wanted to start the hydroponics business. Well, all right, Matthew, you are in the very right place. Very much so, because we are sharing several strategies and ways in which you can, of course, get into the business. So we'll, of course, see to it and, of course, allow for that. I'm seeing here, do you have a recipe for your hydroponics fertilizer solutions? Yes, we do. Now, depending on the crop and what you are growing, of course, we can, of course, create a blend, of course, with the appropriate quantities of your calcium nitrate, your magnesium sulfate, and your agasol 9-18-36, and allow you to, of course, use that recipe. So we can, of course, reach out to us, and we will provide you with the details accordingly. We do have a WhatsApp text line. I'm going to share with you just now that you can, of course, send your messages to. That number is always, someone is always very much readily and available to respond to you, and that's 401-4766, 401-4766, where you can, of course, get, I thought, yes, thank you, marketing department, always on the ball. So you have the chat, so it's in the chat, and you can, of course, respond to it in terms of your question regarding hydroponics, and we'll of course provide you with the technical know-how, and at the same time, one of our agronomists that are in the area can of course visit you and guide you accordingly. So that is where that is concerned. So some of these fertilizers, again, you mix them separately in the ratios, dilute it, mix it out properly, and then you add to the bulk tank. Then you continue to do so. So that's where we are in terms of that. Now, when you are, of course, setting up your system, you're going to need to monitor your EC and your pH. Again, it becomes important because the plants will be, the plants feed at a certain pH, but we want to get this clearer for the non-technocrats and for the technocrats. Why is it important, Samuel? Again, I'm going to bring you back here. The solution changes the nutrient, and at the same time, you want to be monitoring EC, monitoring pH. How is this? Why is this important for our farmers to understand clearly? Because I've seen the mishaps for myself, but why is this so critical and important, Samuel? Why should we do this? Why maintain this ideal range of the 5.5 to 6.5?
Well, it's pretty simple, really, Dean. At a certain pH, right, you have what you call a lockout of fertilizers, where the plants are not able to uptake, the roots of the plants, the hairs are not able to uptake certain fertilizers at certain pH, whether it be high or whether it be low. At certain pH as well, some chemicals tend to be unavailable. So the root may be able to uptake it, but because the acidity of the alkalinity of the solution, those chemicals are not available to the plant because of the chemical processes going on with the pH and the acidity or the alkalinity of it all. So
no, don't go on it, Samuel. You see, this is critical now, you know, farmers. I hope you're getting this now, you know. You raised 2 points there now that I want to reiterate them so that there's a high level understanding. As you mentioned the nutrient being locked out, and you mentioned it being unavailable. Is that correct?
Correct.
Excellent. So farmers, at the range, if you're outside of the range, then the plants cannot take it up. And it can also react in another form, so it's still unavailable to the plants. Continue, Samuel.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, so your pH range is very important. What I have seen is, for example, I have a farmer that I work closely with. She and her son, they're not very prolific as farmers. They're now getting into it as a means of income for the household. So I work very closely with them. And they had a crop of lettuce growing excellent. And they topped up the reservoir. And all of a sudden after that, the lettuce was stunted. It would not grow, it would not perform. Unfortunately, as I said before, they were not in a proper financial place. So they were not able to test things like pH. So I had to go with my tester. And when I tested it, their pH was at actually 7.8, which is literally poisoning your plant, right? And what I have seen too is that at certain pH levels, especially the high acidity and high alkalinity, I'm talking about ranges of 7 point something to 8 and ranges of 4 and 3 and stuff like that. What you have is that the micro hairs on your roots. Now, Dane, you could probably explain it a little bit better to your guys, but your roots, the root of your plant is like the main vein. And then on the root has the root hairs, which are like the capillaries on your body. And those root hairs are the main uptake for nutrients. Those are the things that actually pull nutrients, those little root hairs. And at high acidity and low alkalinity, those root hairs tends to get burnt off, as well as high fertilizer rates. Those root hairs get burnt off. Now, it's not something you can see with your naked eye. So you can pull out your plant, and then you notice your plants have lovely roots, and you're wondering why your plant not growing. It's because your root hairs are burnt off, or they've been damaged, and the plant could no longer pull those micronutrients and pull the fertilizers. And low, extremely low, let me just put it simply, out of range pH, that's one effect it has on the plant. Apart from locking out fertilizers, it also physically damages the plant. Your EC and your ppm is also very important, because
Samuel, let me just put a question here to you before you go further.
Sure.
If the pH is too high or too low, perhaps explain to our farmers how do we correct this in a hydroponic situation? How we do go about correcting this? What do we do?
Right. So what we tend to do is there are chemicals called pH up and pH down that gives you a specified amount. So you purchase these chemicals, and they're designed to decrease the acidity or increase alkalinity and get you to that correct range. So they give you a certain dosage per gallon, and that would affect a certain amount of points on your pH scale. So if you have high acidity, you might need pH up. Let me just make sure, right? pH down, right? If you have, sorry, I think I have my pH a little bit skewed here. But anyway, right? You all getting what I'm saying. You have pH up and pH down to regularize your pH. On a different note, on another note, I have a farmer who refuses to use any sort of synthetic material to control his pH. So what he usually does is he uses vinegar, normal cooking vinegar. And he has done it so much that he has his dosages down to T, right? So that's another means that to explore, using household vinegar to regularize your pH.
Okay.
Right? Also, if you have water that is a bit pH neutral, you can also try diluting your tank a little bit with it. It will not significantly decrease or increase your pH, but it will help getting your pH a couple points lower or higher as needed. Most of the times a bit lower. It lowers the pH when you dilute it a bit, right? So you have those three things there.
Okay. All right. Now we had recorded a video, Samuel. So before you go to the rationale in terms of your EC, I'm just gonna ask Georgia to allow us to view that video that we would have had an amount of, we were doing some work in the field, and we would have had a farmer who would have been in such a position to showcase what he would have done. And at this time, we're just gonna go to that video clip, and then we come back to your point that you're gonna make just now, Samuel. So
yeah, no problem.
Georgia, if you're hearing me at this time, we just wanna do that video just now, and then we go back to that. Again, farmers, I did put out a challenge for a farmer. Yes, Georgia.
Can you go let Samuel continue? We have a little technical difficulty, so let him continue, and then I come back in after that.
Okay, great. All right, so farmers, I do recall putting out a challenge though to say to you, if you can find your 2021 calendar, we have a page, one particular month on hydroponics. Right, Tammy? Also? So we want to let you be the recipient this afternoon, farmers. So in the chat, if you found that page, let me know. And not just that, we're going to take it one step further. Once you found that month, I'm going to ask you to share with us what you found. So, all right, so we'll pick up with you, Samuel, and then we will, as soon as we sort that aspect out, then we go back to it.
Okay,
all
great.
right.
All right. So along the lines of ppm and EC, really quick, does anyone know what ppm or EC stands for? if you can, maybe you could put your mic on really quick and see what it means. ppm and EC. Okay, so I realize a lot of people are shy, right? So ppm stands for parts per million, and EC stands for electrical conductivity. Basically, what one scale does, one scale tests for how many number of particles are floating around in a solution, and the other scale tests for how well your solution conducts electricity, right? Both tests are used to reveal to you how much fertilizers there are in your solution. So in your ppm test, when you test your solution, it actually tests how many parts per million of fertilizer molecules are floating around in your tank, right? So the ppm test will give you, let's say, something like 1800 parts per million. That means that there's a fertilizer rate of 1800 parts per every million parts of water, right? And that gives you, your ppm test gives you an idea of how much fertilizer is in your stock tank. So now you can use that amount, and let's say you have 600 parts per million and you need 800 parts per million in a tank, then you can know, okay, I am missing 200 parts per million to put back into my tank. So then you have obviously you have your records of how you mix and what you get after you mix. So, you go back to your records and you sort yourself out according to how much you need to put back into your tank. Electrical conductivity, EC, is a more refined way of doing that, because salts conduct electricity. So when you add salt into the water, it makes your water more conductive to electric flow. And fertilizers are salts. So the more fertilizer there are in your water, the more conductive your water is. So your EC would give you readings, not huge like 400 and stuff. It will give you readings like 1.8, 0.2, 2.4, 4.1, those kind of things, right? And it's the same way, you know how much you add before and you put it back. Now you measure and you put back. Now, ppm and EC are very important to your plant because, one, you do not want to undernourish your plant. You don't want your plant to be malnourished. And two, you don't want your plant to be overfed and over-fertilized. Why? One, you are going into a venture to, one, make a profit and be sustainable. So you don't want to undersell yourself. You don't want your plant you don't want your plant requiring 800 parts per million and you giving your plant 400 parts per million, right? So that's why it's important to test your water so that you will know that your plant is getting the exact amount of fertilizer needed. Now, I don't want you all to take for granted that if you add water, if you add a mixture this week, you don't need to test next week. If the following week you use the same mixture, you shouldn't take for granted that you have the same reading as last week just because you use the same reading, right? Because your readings can change based on your water supply. Your water supply is very important because your water supply also has an EC and a ppm reading of its own. So you now have to understand that not all the time your ppm would be the same if you use the same amount of fertilizers, simply because the water that you use from your municipal supply or from your tanks or from the rain, they come with completely different ppm most of the times. So you have to accommodate for that, right? Now, you also don't want to be over fertilizing your plants because then you will burn your plants and you will cause catastrophic failure in your field, right? So that is why it's very important to test your ppm and your EC. Now, Dane and his team across in Jamaica, they are well equipped to give you the correct ranges of ppm and EC per plant needs, right? And also it is readily available on the internet, right? So you can do your research and you can count on your local team to get you the information you need. But ppm testing and pH testing are the two, I'll just say they're probably the most important things in getting your plants started to grow properly. Dane, over to you.
Okay,
Dane,
sure.
before you start, Dane, I have a question from YouTube.
Sure, go ahead.
Any advice of growing peppers in hydroponics, and which is your advantage in the Caribbean? And if you're using water with high carbonate level, is it important in terms of your pH as well?
Well, all right. So sure, those two questions are pretty much important. We do have, yes, peppers can be grown in hydroponic system. We generally see a coir mixture or a perlite based mixture that the crop is grown in. Pretty much anything in the cocoa peat region. Again, as I had mentioned to you, that we do have a coarse textured mix of our TH grow mix that can be utilized as well. So this, of course, can be used. The trough can be continuous or they can be individual bags. It's based on preference. Our Red King and Yellow King are excellent cultivars that can be used in the system. So yes, we do have the wherewithal, the products to use. What was the last question again, Georgia? Repeat it for me, please. The last question was?
It was, if you're using water with high carbonate level, is it important in terms of your pH as well?
Yes, so you need to buffer that water down before you add your solution, or if you, because the reason for that, the calcium carbonates that are in that soil, is in that water rather, it already contains calcium. So you need to be able to either one, use it as a source point, or two, neutralize it and then add what is required to that water. So let me hope that that answers the question. I did see the chat, and Pilar Brown, did you find the calendar? I suspect that's perhaps the reason why you did in terms of respond. If that is so, can you just open your mic and indicate if that's what had occurred, and tell me, for example, what is on that particular page, a month, and what was the success story about. And again, farmers, we do.
I do have it. Sorry, I do have it, but I'm currently changing my baby. So if we could just continue and
Yes, and then I'll come back to you. Sure, go ahead. Go right ahead. Go right ahead.
Thank you.
Excellent. So farmers, we do publish these documents, for the benefit of you utilizing them. Information, we spend hundreds of hours, not just putting together the calendar, but of course, conducting these demonstrations so you can benefit directly from it. When I register my business, do I need to, someone like Rada to come by on my property to see, my witness? Okay. All right. So Matthew Thomas, the quality of your output is pretty much, well, we can guide in terms of what it is that you're doing and the output quality, so as to allow you to get good prices and so on. So yes, you can of course reach out to your local extension officers to have them coming in and providing you with some amount of guidance. We do have a very wide range of technical expertise here at Caribbean Chemicals Jamaica and across the English-speaking Caribbean. So you can always, of course, reach out to us. Georgia, have you resolved the technical difficulty with the video presentation? Because that's what I would want to do next, and then move on.
Yes, Dean, we already know. Allow me
Okay,
to share
excellent.
screen.
Sure. All right, so I'm going to stop sharing just now, and then you can go ahead and share. So you can always go ahead as soon as you are. I'm not hearing the audio. Can you pause and share the audio as well? That's not being shared.
Give me a minute, because I did press that. Hold on. Okay.
That's how it is, farmers, with the technology, of course, you know, as we progress, we learn and we do accordingly.
Are you hearing it now?
Welcome to this in another series of Carbon
Yes, certainly.
Today, we're in Ramble, Hanover, where we're talking about hydroponics. Of course, our special guest is Orville McFarlane, and he is the proprietor of this lush green lettuce you're seeing here today. Of course, Orville, thanks for having us. Welcome to our platform where we share on a weekly basis with our farmers and farmer enthusiasts what we are doing in terms of productivity. What got you into hydroponics? I mean, I've heard so many things, but what got you into this side of the business?
All right, thank you for having me. What got me into hydroponic is seeing agriculture every day, farmers doing the same thing over and over, the traditional way of doing farming, and I want to make a difference and I want to do something different. So what I did, I embarked on a journey to teach, or I taught myself hydroponics, and spend some time inside the classroom. I garner the information and I do the trials, and it take us right here.
So I suspect by now you would have had certain advantages, of course. I mean, I heard you saying not going the traditional route. So then the question to mind is, what would be the advantages of doing a production system like this?
The advantage of doing a production system like this is you can ensure quality, timely produce to your customers. That's one. And also, most persons would say that lettuce takes 6 to 7 weeks to ready. My lettuce takes 4 to 5 weeks to ready.
Wow.
So, as you can see, you can guarantee your customers lettuce. And also, during the summer period, most persons would say lettuce short. I don't have a short season. I produce 365 days in the year.
So farmers, you heard that. I noticed also, I don't know if you left out number 3 by intent, but I noticed there's a consistency with the heads right throughout. The system, of course, gives you that advantage. You don't have no weeding for do, my friend.
Only under the table.
Only under the tables. I don't see you have to put in, I don't see any tractor about the place. I
No
don't see any
tractors.
tillers of any sort. So the system gives you a turnaround time which is pretty much shorter than the average farmer.
Average farmer, definitely.
Excellent, excellent. So again, we want to highlight the technology. What are the pros and cons? I mean, obviously there are benefits, but what are the advantages?
Definitely. Pros and cons for hydroponics, you have to know your nutrients, because you have to know what the plants require, what the plants need, what the plants don't need. You have to know that. You have to know your seed quality, because if you're getting inferior seeds, you won't have a lush and a green production like this. So you have to know these. So for anybody to go in hydroponics, you would need some basic training in hydroponics.
Well, farmers, that's the reason why we're here today. To provide you with the basics, the bare essentials, of course, the raw materials, to get you moving, and at the same time to encourage farmers into this field. Now, what's your customer saying? What's the feedback from your market?
Trust me, our feedback is phenomenal, because our customers, once we start supply our customers, they don't stop coming. We go as far as Kingston right now. We're in Hanover and we go as far as Kingston. Every week, General Foods, they want our lettuce like every day. Every day they call, they need lettuce, they need lettuce.
Wow.
So once we start supply a customer and they see our quality, they never stop.
Well, the elephant in the room, let's address that. What's Carbon Chemicals' role, of course, in helping you to get to the end, as in to be able to supply your customers? How are we assisting?
Okay, Carbon Chemicals field officers, they visit us at least once or twice a month. We also use products such as cytokine, green stem, nutrient express to enhance the production level. And if there's anything, we can always call on Carbon Chemicals to give us the information. So They are with us from start to finish.
Excellent, excellent. So farmers, it's a symbiotic relationship. Everybody mutual in the system here. The customers are saying, give me more. The service that we provide you with is top notch and excellent, and at the same time, your level of productivity. What's your scope? Where are you going to be growing to next? I see more land. What's going to be happening next?
Okay, right now we're on 5.5 acres, and our system is 10,000 plant system. And for the next coming weeks, we're going to increase to another 20,000 plants. So we have to produce more because, as them say, lettuce short. So and the price is good now, so we're pushing out more right now.
So you have it. You can easily expand. The system is adaptable, because I suspect if you were to lift this up and go to Kingston, it would work just the same.
No problem.
No issues, no alterations, no major modifications.
Remember, Hanover is not a lettuce area, and we're planting lettuce. So just imagine, they can do this anywhere, and good lands, arable lands, anywhere.
Excellent. Even on top of a roof, eh? Even on top of a roof. So adaptable, it's environmentally friendly, extremely sustainable. There is little to no turnaround time, I suspect, and I'm putting in this. So once we harvest this crop, how soon can you plant back?
Next day.
The next day?
Because we're going to harvest this tomorrow, and by Friday this thing planted.
You're back again?
Yeah.
Clean up, flush the pipes, wash the pipes, and you're back. Again, the system is literally giving you minimal turnaround time. You're able to produce, as you said, 365 days of the year. What would you say to farmers and farmer enthusiasts alike in terms of hydroponics and in terms of agriculture as the way forward?
If you want to use agriculture to move the country, we have to look and see what type of technology is out there right now, and we have to adapt. Because if you to look in the first world countries, they are adapting. So if Jamaica is to move forward, agriculture is what we will use to move the country forward. So hydroponics, you don't need a lot of training to start hydroponics. So I would say get the basic training and do hydroponics.
Now, I notice that I'm seeing lettuce, but I suspect somehow you would have experimented with other crops. Yeah. What else can be grown in a production system of this sort?
Okay, we have tried cauliflower. Cauliflower works pretty well. Normally cauliflower takes 15, 17 weeks. In our system it takes 9 weeks for the curd to be formed. We also have strawberries around the back there in the system, yes. And which have sweet pepper in the system, and tomato. All of those crops can grow.
So major crops, all you'd have to do, perhaps farmers, is to modify the production system so as to get the optimum best out of it.
Yeah.
I must say to you, sir, keep up the good work. I'm encouraged by what I'm seeing. Okay. I want to tell other farmers that it's possible, because we're seeing it here live for ourselves, and the future, as you mentioned, it is only great. Thank you for having us. Keep up the good work, and of course keep on reaching out to us at Caribbean Chemicals. Wherever the technology is, wherever the seeds are in the world, you know we're connected like that, so okay. We will get them to you. Farmers, here again you would have seen the technology. It is adaptable, user-friendly, and by far, a trick question, and you don't have to give me figures. You're making money, sir?
Definitely.
Well, there you have it. I'm out for today. Farmers making money. If the business is working, what more can we say? Thank you for joining us this afternoon. Okay, farmers, you would have seen for yourselves. I just apologize. I'm not sure why the video wasn't playing smoothly, but I do know that generally, well, it should be playing. But
the essence would have come across, and I take it that you got all that information as it would have been presented. The products work, the solutions that we've provided are working and will continue to work. And as we seek to innovate and to adopt, then again, we too can the video, of course, will be shared on our different social media pages. So for the benefit of those who did not get a chance to see it clearly, then of course you will always get that opportunity to. So as you were mentioning earlier with regards to EC, I wonder if the winner of my question, if Miss Brown is back with us as yet.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, great, excellent. So you said you found the page. Which month? What month was it?
It's on June, as you had mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
It states Agasol high quality hydroponic NPK fertilizers. That's one, right?
Yes. Well, I mean, we did publish it. So if that's what you're seeing, then indeed so.
Yeah.
So what was the success story about? What is it about? Tell us.
We have two persons here. The first, I'd say, is Mr. Samuel Sukad.
Mm-hmm.
He did a lettuce in a drip to waste system, and in 3 weeks with Agasol, he had he had crops within 3 weeks.
Excellent, excellent. So farmers, there you have it. The solutions right at your fingertips. Very much published. So we're not keeping secrets now. So from that, you can always look at your production system and then, be so guided as to, the approach you're going to be taking. So thank you, Ms. Brown, for sharing. I want to also indicate to you that since you would have found that particular article and shared with us, you will also be the recipient of one of our gift items for this afternoon's training session.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome. Matthew, you have a question. You can go ahead now, Matthew, and open your mic and ask your question.
All right. Afternoon, sir. Afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
As I said, I'm a teen wanting to start this business. I'm planning to do it on my rooftop. Also, do you provide pH testers if you sell them or not? Only the chemicals?
We've been looking into the products. So in short order, I'll be able to tell you whether or not we'll be able to provide you with them, whether it be the EC or the pH meter. So we'll be able to tell you in a short order whether or not. We don't have it on hand at this point in time, but we will be able to tell you whether or not we'll be able to supply you in short order with that product. Any other questions?
Okay. With the nutrients, do you supply it in liquid or like a flour form, like dry?
It comes in a dry powdered form. So what we recommend is that you get a scale also that can, because I'm not sure of the size tank you'll be using, get a scale that can measure in grams as well, because you may be required to go as in terms of grams. So get a gram scale, one that is at least a 0.00 decimal place correctness. We do supply yes.
Like the PVC pipe, the 3-inch pipes, do anyone know where I can get them at a reasonable cost?
Well, as I said, I gave you the WhatsApp number. So what you
just message that after?
Yeah, it's in the chat. So you can just share that message and then we'll be able to guide you where some of the inputs are and some of the types of design. We can always discuss that. Where is your location, by the way?
I'm located in Sandy Bay, Clarendon.
Sandy Bay, Clarendon. Well, all right, great. That's my particular area. So it should be interesting to work with you and to help you to develop a system and to, of course, in future, perhaps have you on the platform to share in your success with the other farmers. So the 401 number is in the chat. You could just get it, send your message to it. Either Miss Roper or Robinson will respond to you, and then we can take it from there. All right?
Okay, sir. I've already saved it.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. I see where there's another. Okay, it's reposted, so it's right there again in the chat. Are there any other questions at this time for us? Well, all right then. So you can check your EC and your pH or your solution again, as Samuel would have mentioned, just to ensure that you are getting. Okay, so will yes, the PowerPoint this presentation, of course, will be on our YouTube channel, also on a different social media platforms. It's being recorded live. The content therein can also be shared. Again, you can always make your request, Sir Nemad, and then we can take it from there. Thank you for joining us, sir, and for having asked your question. So, of course, it's on our channel at Carib Chem Jam. So Carib Chem Jam on the various social media platform. It's on YouTube, so you can watch it, play it, rewind it, get some more information. So the ECP and pH, your ppm again gives you that blend. So having to calculate the right amount of nutrients in terms of grams, in terms of your volume of water, so you can know how much to run through your system, it is also critical. So once you understand this, then you won't get the kinds of negative feedback from your plant, whether it be the roots being damaged or the stunted growth that you would see in the system. So the blends that we are making reference to now is our Agasol 91836. It comes with a 2% magnesium, as well as you can acquire your calcium nitrate and your magnesium sulfate. And we normally mix in a ratio of a 1 to 1 to half in that particular ratio, which is your Agasol, your calcium nitrate, and your magnesium sulfate for the benefit of the growth of the plant. As you shift in terms of be it lettuce or be it a sweet pepper or tomato, the program can be modified accordingly. Do you suggest greenhouse covering for your hydroponic system? It can be done. You may or may not be required to do so. I've seen open field systems, like the one that we've been to. Ricardo Chambers from Chambers Hydro Farm, his space is open. So depending, if you're using a medium like your perlite or your coir, then you might want to cover. Why? Water can, of course, dilute or wash out those tanks or those troughs. So you want to be able to at least prevent the direct flow of rainwater into your system. All right, so a good considering also to, of course, in terms of heavy rainfall and in terms of wind shear, you can always do that. So whether it be side netting or you want to do a net structure, just the same, you can of course do that. And of course, for persons who are doing it in a continuous basis, and when you have the peak rainfall period and you want to go out and do your various agronomic practices, be it harvesting or doing your fertigation checks and so on, then of course you have the advantage to do so. As I mentioned to you earlier, farmers, oxygenation is also going to be critical because you want to ensure that your water contains dissolved oxygen. The best method I've seen so far is to have an air pump installed. In some instances, you have persons doing what they call an overflow method, where as the water returns to the original tank, it falls into the tank, thereby incorporating oxygen. Of course, this is a slow way to add oxygen back to your tank, but at the same time, it does work. And of course, we would have, these are some scenes from Mr. McFarlane's farm where we went and with that we've been working with him over an extended period of time. Dale Smith is the agronomist along with Aluda Shaw in this region. So, this is pretty much his setup. as he mentioned to your lettuce, pretty much every week when he's not planting, he's harvesting, and it's a quick and easy turnaround system. As you harvest, you go right back into it. Had this been soil, then what you would have had to do, you would have had to remove the weeds perhaps that have grown, plow again, stretch out back your drip lines, charge those lines and plow. All you'd have to do is just harvest, shut off those lines, clean the pipes, and you could plant back in another 24 to 48 hours. I see another hand raised. Good afternoon. Can you just open your mic and...
Yes, good afternoon. Shirley V. Smith is the name, and I'm from Clarendon, Freetown, Longville Park to be exact. And I'm representing Empower to Soar Foundation, where we cater to groups of farmers.
Yes.
And as well as Go Link Kiddies Kingdom. And we are presently working or gathering materials to set up our hydroponic school farm.
Mm-hmm.
So I am very appreciative of being invited to engage this session. You just mentioned about flushing the pipes. What method is that? Does that take? Especially like this farm that the pipes are so long. What is the flushing process? As well as how do you set up the switch off? Because presently we got some pumps, but not some water pumps that will really shoot water up to 6 feet high, but that will create the consistent flow. And we really want to understand how to attach the pump, the switch off, or it requires a kind of pump with an additional switch on it, or a built-on switch on it in order to have this function.
All right, thank you for your question. One of the things I'm going to ask you to do is to share your information with marketing, as I'll be in Clarendon on Thursday. Not sure if you'll be available. I could always do a site visit so as to guide you in terms of your setup. As I was mentioning to you earlier in the training session, based on your setup, the type of crops and your space, that determines how you build out your system. What you would need to require to do, let's say you're doing lettuce, as in this case, then at the point where you're harvesting, what they do is to build these frames based on the cycles that they're producing in. So for lettuce, they know it's going to take 5 weeks, so there are 5 stations. Good? Each of these stations, you can either divert or turn down or switch off the flow of nutrients going to that particular station. Are you following so far?
Yes.
Good. So you want to be in a position where basic lock-off valves are installed, so you can either shut off the water going to this part of the hydroponic setup, so you don't have a situation where you're harvesting and you're still pumping water through your system, if that's how you are going to be operating it. In a situation where too, in terms of cleanup process, you can, for some persons, you can flush with hydrogen peroxide that does not go back into your reservoir or your sediment or your tank, as well as you can use water to just clean up in terms of crop residue on the pipes, or you can just flush the channels directly with water. What you're not seeing in the image is the fact that these pipes have a return line, and the return line can either be diverted or turned off, and it doesn't have to go back into your main tanks. All right. Samuel, have you...
So you're saying...
Yes, go ahead.
So you're saying that it doesn't have to be automatic, because it can be manually done.
Yes, it can be manually done. Yes, yes.
And one more question: does it require, like I know for aquaponics, require a certain kind of water, basically rainwater, or that purified water that does have the there in it? Is it the same with this?
Like a game, so you come back.
No, it doesn't have to be. But at the same time, what you do is that you want to know the quality of the water so you can add your buffer your solution so you can be correct going forward in terms of what you're doing. So when you add your nutrients, you don't get any sort of precipitate or any buildup of any other salts in your system.
Okay,
All right.
that's my concern. What about buildups in terms of flushing? And if there are buildups, how you get rid of those? But since you said, you know, you test water and so on. All right, thank you.
Okay, great.
Dan.
Yeah, sure.
Hey, Dan.
Yes, Samuel, go ahead.
You mind if I just say a few on that topic there?
Yeah, man, go ahead. Certainly.
All
Sure.
right. Sorry, I just got cut off halfway through while I didn't get her name. Sorry. She was asking the question about flushing and stuff like that.
Yes.
Is it flushing from the aspect of cleaning the pipes or
Yes,
flushing?
yes, and you're cleaning up. Yes, when you're cleaning up the system.
Oh, okay. Some ways that some of my farmers use to clean the pipes. They just simply spray chlorine down the pipes.
Mm-hmm.
They mix a mixture of chlorine and water. They spray it down the pipes, especially if you have the ones that open in half. Those are the dedicated hydroponic channels. And you spray the chlorine down in it and you just wash it off with a pressure washer. That is the most effective way of getting rid of buildups and flushing your system, because it's very important to sanitize the system, because lacking of sanitization is where you have a lot of issues beginning. And you know, it's a closed loop system. So once you let's say, for example, you have a root rot situation happening and you don't sanitize that pipe and it gets into a closed loop system, then what came from one root will eventually affect the thousands of roots that you have. So chlorine and water and a pressure washer is usually some of the best ways to do that. And just one more thing before I hand over back, Dane. I hear and I know you all will work closely with her to get the hardware she needs. When it comes to the pump, one thing I want you all to understand is, especially if you're doing an NFT system, you cannot use a normal house pump, right? So it doesn't matter how high the pump will flow to or how much pressure the pump will push.
That's right.
You cannot use, you just simply cannot use a house pump. You need a dedicated pump and a pump that is called a continuous duty cycle pump. Simply put, if you use a house pump for more than, let's say, half an hour continuously, it will burn the pump out. You need a pump that is designed to run 24/7, 365 a year. And those pumps are usually, when you buy it, you have to ask for a continuous duty cycle pump. A continuous duty pump or a continuous cycle pump, right? Those pumps are usually dedicated irrigation pumps, right? So don't worry about the height the pump push, or don't worry about the pressure the pump push. Worry about the technical aspect of the pump. And it has to be a continuous duty pump. All right, that's just my couple.
Thank you.
Okay, then great. Because again, as Samuel would have mentioned, and I was going to get to that because I saw the message in the chat just the same. The situation would have been that if you are not careful, then you can, of course, damage the equipment. And again, you're going to have to go back in terms of doing it. So can I ask, is it Clark?
Can I just ask one last question, please?
Oh, go ahead.
Earlier in this earlier section, where the two different systems can be used, something was mentioned about turning off the flow of water. How long can you turn off the flow of water? Like you flow it through the night or flow it through the day, turn off some concept like that. I'm not sure.
Oh, no, that's not what I was saying. I was saying that in the event that you're harvesting, because as I was pointing out that this is a modular, it's built out based on a weekly flow of harvest. That's how the system is designed. So when I get to your location, one of the objectives I want to first ask is, what's your target in terms of output? What are your crops? So then we can then work from there to build out and scale it in a sense where if you want to be harvesting in 1,000 pounds of romaine lettuce or broccoli or cauliflower, then for example, it has to be scaled in a manner where you're either planting weekly and harvesting, so your thing is your business is continuous. You don't want to do it that the whole system has to be shut down. How this is operated is that he harvests lettuce pretty much every week.
Okay, gotcha.
So your system has to be built in a manner in that mindset. If it is that's how your market is gonna be. There were two hands.
Hope to speak to you soon because I'm trying to get my things equipment.
Sure, I took down the information, and I'm sure Georgia and Stephanie would have done the same. There were two hands raised. Ms. Clark, is it? Unmute. Go ahead and unmute and ask.
Hi, it's good afternoon. I'm Arlene Winstanley Clark. Yes. I just following up on the pump, the continuous duty pump.
Yes.
Where do we get that to buy locally? Do you sell it?
No, we don't sell those pumps, but some of the major suppliers of these electrical equipment does. There are persons in and around Kingston that does that. Once you're purchasing it, then you can always mention that. I'll speak to Samuel as well to get some further details in terms of whether there are any in Trinidad side, so we can, of course, depending on the system that you're building out, because you're gonna have to size the pump as well too. So even though they are continuous, if you're running a certain volume of water for an extended period of time, you also want to be in a position to get the right size pump. But right. I'll do further checks and then let you know. So again,
and these are submersible pumps?
They can be submersible, they usually are, and at the same time you have pumps that are just connected directly in line with the tank that pulls water from it. So you do have this, they can be of two types. It can be submersible with a float switch attached, or it just continuously moves the nutrient solution.
Okay, all right.
Great. The other participant, who was it again, please? That would have raised your hands. Sorry, let me just check again and see. Oh, Matthew, you had another question?
Yes, sir. I was wondering if I think it was probably Mrs. Smith, if when she's going to do her setup, if it's possible, like, because I'm close, if I could come and see how it's done and so forth.
Well, we would have to discuss that, and then we can refer. Well, there you go.
In fact, we get some sponsorship from Digicel. So, except that we were focusing early on aquaponics, but we figured because we want to establish a high-tech farm, we want to even have 1 or 2 setup of hydroponics. But this kind of workshop now is broadening our horizon. So definitely, and as I said, I'm representing Empowered to Soar Foundation, and we have farmers, and we try to promote smart technology in farming. So you can be a part of our group where you can get, support, visit work together, things like that, help you to get grants and so on.
Excellent, okay, excellent. So we are part of a broader world farmers. Samuel is in Trinidad here, joining the session, and at the same time, sharing his experiences as we continue to collaborate. And of course, on Wednesday morning, that's tomorrow, from 6:18 through to anywhere 6:45 or even sometimes up to 7 o'clock, we'll be again on this subject matter where it concerns hydroponics, myself, Dane Parker, and Dale Smith, as well as on the 29th of November, we'll be having a new product launch. That, of course, will be again another virtual session where we'll be in the offices in Kingston with the representatives. So again, you have another opportunity to tune in. The contact information for the various agronomists in the different territories would have been shared. Feel free to drop us a line on our WhatsApp and on our Facebook and on our Instagram message boards, and of course you'll get information. So Dale Smith is in Hanover, St. James and Trelawney. Sion Spence is in Westmoreland and St. Elizabeth. Yours truly, Clarendon, Manchester, and John Lloyd Johnson, St. Catherine, St. Andrew, and St. Thomas, and Dennis Lecky, St. Mary, and Portland. So we have a wealth of knowledge to share across the length and breadth of the various territories. We are also on our different social media platforms. We will have been at least a 2-year running, long before COVID. We started out with our platform. So feel free to join, share, like, comment, and subscribe. And we, of course, continue to encourage you to stay safe, follow the different protocols. Again, I cannot overemphasize eat, sleep, and exercise. You know, build your immune system so as to allow us to fight this COVID-19. And of course, be your own hero in your own space, in your own time. Thank you, Samuel, for joining us. Yes, Georgia, go ahead.
Just want to add that for tomorrow morning, we will be on Power 106. You didn't mention
Yes.
that. It's Power 106.
Yes.
Yeah, at 6:18.
Great. So thank you, Samuel, for having participated. I think you're an hour ahead of us, is that? So you're anywhere about going up to 4. Thank you, farmers, for joining, and see you next time. Walk good and stay safe.
Okay, thanks for having me.
And thank you all for
Very interesting. Very, very
Thank you.
interesting. Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Keep
All
safe,
right.
everybody.
Thank you, everyone.